Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Rode from Mobilent. With most of the work on the Master Books series videos coming to an end, I've gained a bit of weight and become quite well fed. So I've decided to start upgrading my old road bike from 2008. As an aging cyclist like myself, I have a preference for mechanical systems. Although I'm the author of Master Books on electric bikes and e-scooters, and a fan of anything with two wheels, I have this philosophical conviction that bicycles for lifelong use should be able to hit the road at any moment, regardless of battery life or electric power. Even John Ulrich, the former editor of Biker Radar, recently built up a bike with a mechanical drivetrain. My bike, unlike his, sadly doesn't have an internally routed eternal frame, but since I like the classic, mechanical, steampunk style, I don't really mind. I do like hydraulic brake systems, but after feeling the weight of hydraulic setups, I was so surprised that I decided against using them. On the bright side, some of today's latest flagship frames and wheels are about 100 grams lighter each, which helps offset the weight drawback of using hydraulic braking systems. Since my bike is a rim brake model, I've decided to install the 9100 Dura Ace 11 speed components. I'll be using single pivot brakes that can accommodate wider tires up to about 30C. Here, I've removed the brake pivot bolt and the cable anchor bolt. It seems like rim brake bicycles are becoming a thing of the past. About 10 years ago, UCI regulations prohibited disc brakes on road bikes. Back then, I couldn't understand why disc brakes weren't used with carbon wheels. Those who've been cycling for a while are probably familiar with the heat deformation issues that rim brakes can cause on wheels. Nowadays, with disc brakes, the risk of carbon rim damage has been eliminated. The ban in races back then was partly due to concerns that other riders could be injured in crashes involving disc brakes. There were also rumors that European luxury bicycle workshops weren't ready to produce disc brake-equipped models. As for this red look brand handlebar tape you see, it's so thin that it provides almost no cushioning. It was one of the lightest bar tapes available, but it sacrificed cushioning for grip, making it feel quite stiff. When I bought Drivetrain components, Ultegra levers were a fantastic value for the money. They were so well made that their failure rate was close to zero, even compared to Dura Ace. Just as a side note, back then, SRAM was only used by those who were in the know. There was a time when Campagnola was known for its fast shifting and high-end status, but now it feels like SRAM has overtaken them when it comes to electronic components. I used Dura Ace pedals and attached a flat pedal cleat adapter so I could use my bike for everyday tasks like grocery shopping. However, when I pedaled hard, the cleats wobbled a lot, so it was better not to use them. A bit of discomfort on the soles of my feet was more tolerable. In short, flat pedal cleats were just not for me. After removing the pedals, I'll now remove the crank arms. In the past, 50 trillion compact cranksets were seen as a symbol of defeat, commonly thought to be only for beginners. That perception was strong partly because there were hardly any road cyclists back then. Compact cranksets were so unpopular that even high-end models like Dura Ace didn't come in compact versions, which meant cranks couldn't be part of any upgrades at the time. I've already cleaned out the dust and sand from the bottom bracket area. I'll be installing the Dura Ace 12-speed 9200 cranks. Now, let's insert the crank spindle. Initially, I planned to go with the 9100 series, but during my time away from road cycling, I learned there were significant crank arm failure issues, leading to a massive recall due to cracks and breakages in Shimano's 9100 crank arm models. To prioritize safety, I chose the 9212 speed cranks, despite the added weight. In practice, I've had no shifting issues. I've slightly raised the retaining pin to install the non-drive side crank arm. Using the crank arm fixing bolt, I applied just enough torque. Over-tightening would reduce the crank arm's rotation. I alternate tightening the bolts gradually. Now, let's install the right side pedal. Dura Ace pedals have kept the same design for almost 20 years, which speaks to their reliability and stability. The only change has been the shift in materials from aluminum to carbon. Shimano's inner cables are black and coated with Teflon, which is the same material used for non-stick coating on frying pans, known for its incredibly low friction. I'm wrapping the bars with a more affordable bar tape that costs about $8. I chose it thinking the design would match the bike well, but contrary to the pictures, the red polka dot pattern stretched and ended up looking quite unappealing. On top of that, the material felt too hollow, and the grip and friction didn't meet expectations. While it's comfortable enough to use without gloves, it didn't offer the satisfying grip I was looking for. So, I ordered the Giant Stratus 3.0 bar tape. This bar tape features a high-friction polyurethane material with a texture designed for the best anti-slip performance and comfort. The Look racing tape I previously used was too thin, causing fatigue when riding without gloves. This new tape has a texture I like, providing just the right amount of cushioning, and feels great to grip. The textured pattern also gives it a premium look, and I can see why it costs around $23. The front derailleur setup has become slightly more challenging for cable-operated models compared to the past. Unlike older front derailleurs, a support block has to be attached to the frame. Front derailleurs face high tension loads, causing the cable to pull and twist slightly. This block prevents twisting, enabling precise shifting. Even if it adds a bit of weight, I highly recommend installing it. Since it's not available domestically, I ordered mine from AliExpress. I've also installed the 9100 Dura Ace rear derailleur. Personally, I think it looks a bit bulkier and more mountain bike-like compared to older models. The direct mount hanger system has increased the number of pivots, so older bikes could easily have bent hangers after a fall. During sprints, I had some concerns that the chain might not engage fully on the high gears of the cassette, but luckily, I encountered no shifting problems while riding. However, I did experience issues when using other lightweight chains instead of Shimano chains. Next, I've opted for Campagnolo WTO wheels. These are versatile, all-around wheels with a 45mm rim height, suitable for both flat roads and mountain terrain. Weighing in at around 1490 grams, they're not the lightest among carbon wheels of their height, but are designed to minimize the impact of crosswinds, and are quite sturdy for their weight. I've had some scary experiences with 60mm deep rims, where crosswinds caused the front wheel to steer unexpectedly, and the higher rim height made descents and cornering feel unstable due to the increased rotational inertia. These wheels feature tubeless compatible rims and, unlike those from other brands, don't have spoke holes, which greatly reduces the chance of air leakage. The absence of spoke holes might add a bit of weight, but it's not a major issue. However, since I'm a bit of a lazy cyclist, I plan to use clincher tires. Another major reason I chose these wheels is that the ratchet sound is not loud. Personally, I'm not a fan of wheels with noisy ratchets. To me, they sound hysterical and nervous, like they're constantly nagging at me to pedal faster whenever I take a short break. I prefer the quiet, almost floating sensation of a silent hub. In the past, I consistently chose Ultegra wheels over top-tier models because, while heavier, they were silent. Recently, a hub manufacturing company introduced a completely silent hub, and if I have the time, I'd like to try building a set of carbon wheels with those hubs. Previously, I used a 50 trillion compact crankset. Back then, it was often mocked as the loser's setup, with people claiming that real men only used standard cranks. But in a country like Korea, with its many steep mountains, I still think that's nonsense. At the time, I used a 25 trillion sprocket in the rear. To maintain a similar gear ratio, I'm now opting for a 52 trillion crankset chainring with a 30 trillion sprocket in the back. I highly recommend using genuine Shimano Dura Ace sprockets instead of knockoffs or lightweight alternatives, as they often suffer from poor shifting accuracy. An interesting feature of these wheels is the use of ceramic ball bearings, which provide a remarkably smooth rolling hub experience. If you lift the wheel in the air, the valve, being heavier, naturally rotates downward due to gravity. I'm genuinely impressed with the Campagnolo WTO Bora USB hubs. They felt incredibly smooth during rides. Additionally, the reduced spoke count, which has a significant impact on aerodynamics, was a major factor in choosing these wheels. On the downside, while the G3 spoke pattern looked stylish, there was a slight misalignment during sprints. These are Campagnolo's specific carbon rim brake pads. A front and rear set costs about $30, but when it comes to safety, I don't mind spending the extra money. I actually bought these wheels secondhand. For some reason, the front wheel had a 28C tire and the rear had a 25C tire. It's a strange configuration that I don't quite understand. Using a larger front tire is common on mountain bikes for better grip, but I've never seen it on a road bike before. So, I decided to swap them out for Schwalbe Pro 1 clincher tires, both in 25C. Tubeless tires and wheels were already used in high-end mountain bikes before they made their way to road bikes. However, after just a few days, the air pressure would drop significantly, which made managing the tire pressure a hassle. I once pumped the tires up to the maximum pressure, then parked the bike outside on a hot day under direct sunlight. The wire bead on the tire snapped, causing the sealant inside to evaporate and explode, leading to quite a mess. When I removed the rear tire, I found a TPU tube inside. As expected, thermoplastic polyurethane tubes are impressively lightweight. However, I'm not a fan because they tend to bounce around too much under heavy impact. So, I'm deflating this one to keep as a spare tube. For now, I find traditional butyl tubes easier to set up, so I'm sticking with the larger, heavier lightweight butyl tubes. I opted for Schwalbe Pro ones because I heard Continental 5000 tires are tricky to mount. Even if it means sacrificing a bit of performance, I'd rather not struggle to remove the tires during a long ride. Next, I'm installing the chain. It's supposedly coated with a special material like diamond or Teflon. I was curious how a black chain would look on a black bike, so I decided to try it out. I'll do a separate review later, but in terms of weight and aesthetics, this black chain looks fantastic. At least, aesthetically speaking. I also hoped that the black chain would hide dirt better, meaning I wouldn't have to clean it as often. Of course, it's best to use Shimano products with Shimano Drivetrains. To set the chain length, place it on the largest cog and adjust so that the rear derailleur is stretched out to about 90% capacity. Then, cut and reconnect the chain. To save weight, I'm using plastic acrylic bolts for the bottle cage. I also added a cute character keychain for a bit of flair. At last, the rough upgrade of this old bike is complete. Now that the proofreading updates for the master books are finally done, I can go for solo rides again. For the past 10 years, I've been deeply involved in weight training and studying biomechanics for bodybuilding. So I took a break from non-motorized cycling. If I were focused on making an ultralight bike, I could have used low-profile rims, carbon brake arms, lightweight TPU tubes, and a carbon crankset to bring the weight below 6 kilograms. But I've had issues with the durability of some dub spindles, creaking bottom brackets, brake return problems, poor braking performance, and aesthetic concerns with low-profile rims. So I decided against using ultralight components. The bike now weighs 6.64 kilograms, including the pedals. Moving forward, I plan to occasionally review non-motorized bikes and introduce various components. Thank you for watching. Your subscriptions, likes, and comments really motivate me to make more videos. This was Dr. Road, Inquan Huang, author of the Master Book series on electric bikes and scooters in the US, Korea, China, and Japan. Thank you for tuning in.